Hello students, welcome back to my channel. Let us continue learning networking concept. In today's session, we will be learning everything about protocols. Especially, we will be looking into four type of protocols briefly. All right. So before we get on to them in detail, first let us see what is a protocol means. In general, when we talk about protocol simply means a set of rules. So why are we talking about rules in networking? Now, network is nothing but there is two or more computers or any devices which are connected through a communication line. It can be wired or wireless communication. Now, in order to happen this for communication to happen, there are certain set of rules we need to follow or protocols we need to follow. So whenever we talk about a network protocols help optimize the efficiency and the reliability of the communication between the two devices. So efficiency and reliability, in order to improve that, we will follow the protocols. There are n number of protocols. Today we will be seeing mainly four of them. All right. So now let us start with the very first one, which is our HTTP, Hypertext Transfer Protocol. So every time whenever you are using or browsing a web browser, you would have noticed something like this HTTP and then the website name. For example, google.com, www.google.com. Now, what is this HTTP? This HTTP is nothing but our Hypertext Transfer Protocol. So every time you're trying to access a web page over the World Wide Web, that is your www, it uses a Hypertext Transfer Protocol. So the Hypertext Transfer Protocol is an application level protocol with the lightness and speed necessary for distributed collaborative hypermedia information systems. So when I say application level, it is just like the application what a user uses. For example, for our case, if it is a web is an application. So in the web, when you type any website name, that uses HTTP. All right. So it uses that particular protocol. So it builds on the discipline of reference provided by the Uniform Resource Identifier, URI, as a location, URL or URN for indicating the resources on which a method is to be applied. Which mean to say, for example, if I'm saying http.google, so with the help of this, the Hypertext Transfer Protocol find out on what website or on what web server or a web client, that particular HTTP transfer protocol is to be applied. Okay, so uniform resource identifier, uniform resource location, or uniform resource name. So URL stands for uniform resource locator or uniform resource name. It uses these for indicating the resource on which the method to be used. So using any three of this, it will find out which is the resource. So as you can see in the diagram, how does a HTTP work? There is a client, for example, it is you opening a web browser and trying to access certain things from the Google. So this is the Google server. So whatever the request, the first client, whenever you search something, the request goes through the network to the server, and then whatever the required pages are there, that comes in the form of a response to the client. So here, mainly HTTP protocol is used in order for you to able to access those pages. All right. So HTTP has various built-in requests. So it is, when I say HTTP, it can be various actions which a user wants to perform on it. So it has many built-in request methods which allow user to read a web page. You can read or read a web page's header only, or to store a web page, to append to a named resource, or to remove the web page. So all these actions you can do, whatever you are doing on the web page is nothing but it is done by HTTP, or to connect to existing resources, or to break an existing connection. So these are the various built-in request methods inside HTTP. All right, I hope HTTP is clear. Next protocol we have is another important one. This is file transfer protocol, which is called as a FTP. As you can say, we will have a FTP server where my data or file or any resource is stored, and then FTP client. This is another system where a client is sitting and he is trying to access the data from a server. So how does it work? If it is using a file transfer protocol. So basically, as you can see, this is only for file transfer. Client will be requesting, you want to access the retrieve the data. So the access will go through the firewall, it goes to the server. And once it is accepted, FTP replies, and then it will give a access to the client. So this is how a FTP works. It happens between the FTP client and FTP server. It is mainly used for transferring of files. Okay. So one of the original services on the internet was designed to allow transferring files. So mainly in the internet, what original was for transferring file from one system to another. That is the reason the network was built initially. We have seen what is the need for a network. When we were discussing that topic, we have discussed them in detail. So transferring file was one of the important tasks. So files of any type can be transferred, although you may have to specify whether the file is ASCII or a binary file. By mentioning that, you can transfer any kind of a file using the FTP. They can be transferred to any system on the internet provided that the permissions are set accordingly. Now, what do you mean by permissions? Now, for example, there may be permission only for read-only permissions. In that case, of course, you won't be able to transfer the files. If it is edit or if at all you have a permission to retrieve the file, and if you're able to edit and such like that, there are various kinds of permissions. If accordingly your permissions are set, then you can use the FTP and you will be able to access the data. All right, this is your FTP protocol. Let us see the advantages of that. It is useful to transfer file, of course, from one network to another. It is effective way to get geographically dispersed group to cooperate on a project. What do you mean by geographically dispersed? For example, it can be, for example, there is a company, it's an international company, its branch is in USA, the UK, and it is in India. Geographically, they are dispersed, but through the network, they will be able to transfer the file, access the file. In such cases, they can use FTP. It is popular way to share information over the internet. FTP works as a client-server process. So this is one of the very famous protocols. Next protocol is SLIP. It stands for Serial Line Internet Protocol. All right. So Serial Line Internet Protocol was the first protocol for relaying the Internet protocol packets over dial-up lines. Now, dial-up lines are nothing but the communication lines, the physical lines. Okay. It defines an encapsulation mechanism with little ease. There is no support for dynamic address assignment, as in you will have to have a connection predefined. If I'm going to transfer it, there has to be a communication, predefined communication has happened between them. You cannot say that while processing something, I'm going to communicate. So dynamic is nothing but it is happening randomly at any moment of time. Is not possible using the SLIP. While using the SLIP, you have to have a we have to have a predefined communication. Communication must have been set up beforehand. All right. Protocols over a single link, SLIP has been largely supplanted by PPP. Now, point-to-point protocol, this is also we will see. So it is supplanted by the PPP. Okay, this is your SLIP. It is mainly used. It cannot be used dynamically. You should always have a dial-up, especially when there is a local area network. We will go on to see what is a local area network, but as of now, you can understand when there is a network in a smaller area. We are not talking about geographically dispersed area like FTP. Here we are talking about there is being a dial-up network between them. Also, they have been connected to each other and they have already the session has started between them. Only in such cases, we can use the SLIP. The last one for today we have is point-to-point protocol. As you can see, the point-to-point protocol looks something like this, where our systems are all connected to each other. So what is this point-to-point? Point-to-point is the internet standard for transmission of IP packets. Once again, here also we are talking about internet protocol packets. Now, packets and datagram and everything we have seen in the previous session. Okay, so here it is over a serial lines. So the PPP is currently the best solution for dial-up. Once again, your PPP as well as SLIP are best for your dial-up internet connections, including ISDN. What is this ISDN? ISDN stands for integrated services digital network, which are nothing but a set of communication standards. Okay, so this is one of the communication standards. So PPP is a layered protocol. What do you mean by layered protocol? Now, layered is when a communication is complex, we must divide the task into different layers. Okay, so if there is a particular task, one single task, and it is very complicated, then I have to divide that into different tasks, and I will have so I will divide the task into different layers. So we need to follow a protocol at each layer. So here I will follow one kind of a protocol. Here I will follow one protocol, kind of a protocol. Here I will follow another kind of a protocol. This technique is called as layering. Layering of protocols. So PPP is a layered protocol. PPP will be used, for example, for a particular, this one we can use PPP. So starting with the link control protocol for link establishment, configuration, and testing. So along with the link control protocol, you can use PPP. So link control protocol, especially we will be using for establishment, configuration, and testing of the link. After that, we will be using the point-to-point protocol where we will be able to transfer the data or any connections if you want to have. So PPP supports both synchronized and unsynchronized lines. Now, unlike our SLIP was only synchronized. What do you mean by synchronized? Is communication must have been established and confirmed beforehand. Unsynchronized is there need not be a synchronization between the receiver and the sender. That is called as unsynchronized, wherein which PPP approves for both, but our SLIP approves only for the synchronized one. All right. This is our 4 types of a protocol. That is your HTTP, FTP, SLIP, and PPP. So we need to learn them very briefly. We need not go in depth for PUC syllabus. I hope this is clear. All right. So thank you so much, students. That's all in today's session. Keep learning.